Yo, so shout out to Sheehan. He exposed Zionist China on millennials are killing capitalism. And we know China's a big shithole. We know China's a big Zionist shithole. And we know the Chinese are a bunch of Zionist cucks. And they serve the Zionist agenda. And Sheehan exposes them. Let's take a listen.
Oppressed, subjugated, displaced, dispossessed in the name of American empire and colonialism. And I really do think that folks are there. So it's a matter of sort of paying attention to the asphyxiatory nature of empire. Has a way of making you feel, reaching into you and making you feel like there's no way to move. And this is what breathing psychic space into our spaces are, like internally and in these sorts of conversations, to be like, no, actually most of the world doesn't believe this. And we see right through it, and that's why they're losing their fucking minds. Because most people do see right through it and understand precisely what's happening and know that this is people fighting for liberation.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
Yeah, right on. So I want to talk. I actually want to jump to talking. So we're going to talk about space for stuff that feels gutting, but I don't want to. I want to go to that in a little bit. So I do want to talk about yesterday. Because I think this is one of those things, and it's like I think about. And actually, I mean, maybe it also, in some ways, connects to Nasrallah too, because I think when he is assassinated, you see immediately how meaningful this person, this figure is to so many people, right? And part of it is absolutely his role in, similar to how a lot of Gazans and Palestinians feel about Hamas and being able to successfully expel, the settlers from Gaza, in 2006, but 2003, yeah. Somewhere,
Yeah, 06 would be Lebanon, 2003 would be Gaza.
06 is Lebanon, but similarly, right, with Hezbollah and with Nasrallah, and Nasrallah being such an important leading figure, that so many people, whether they were Shia, right, or just people who would tune in to hear him speak, or whatever. I mean, just an incredibly charismatic person who also was very clear in a couple of the things that you both said early on. I think, Stephen, you laid it out too. Very clear on the relationship between U.S. imperialism and Zionist settler colonialism. Very clear on what it means for a regime to collaborate then with the U.S. or collaborate with Israel directly, and very actually, I mean, and this is part where it can get challenging sometimes, is that also, opposes disorder a lot of times, like domestically or within certain Arab or Muslim states, because of the fact that it is and it creates a condition which Israel and the United States are often able to manipulate towards their own ends, right? Because of their power and their own sophistication. I don't want to use that stupid word. I hate that word now. But because of that, their intelligence, whatever. But so there's that. I'll say that, and you can respond to any of that you want. But you just saw how meaningful this person was for millions and millions of people around the world. And then beyond that, yesterday you see these, the strikes, the bombings, attacking airports, right? The targets were military airports and the Mossad headquarters, right? And so many videos that you create incontrovertible proof that targets were hit, right? Sounds like a lot of F-35s were hit at 135 million a pop. And you know, there's just I was thinking about that, about October 1st also in relation to October 7th, right? Of these moments where there's a measure of justice, of response, and it goes back to the point you were making about impunity, right? For an entity that has acted with so much impunity, right? That, I mean, to see children and young people having something to celebrate in Gaza, you know, a year into just horrendous genocide, you know, it's like, how can that not sort of warm your heart, right, on some level? And I was thinking about Jodi Dean, who had written a piece about October 7th, and I think she described it as exhilarating or something along those lines, and was, you know, she was suspended temporarily, was able to get back, thankfully, a lot of support, which is great. But that notion that, you know, you can't even name that you feel that it gives you some kind of good feeling inside to see this violent, unaccountable, you know, genocidal force, this settler colonial force, to be held to account for. I mean, in the case of the Iran response, right, it was for very specific things. It was like, you assassinated this guy, you did this on our territory. Like, it's any other nation state operates in quite similar ways, right? And so, and then the last thing is that I do think it is important also that Iran attacked military targets at that point, you know, and very clear ones that were complicit in all kinds of crimes themselves. And that the response of so many Israelis and so many Zionists was, well, they didn't kill any civilians, you know, so it was a failure, right? Which, and then they go out and they, like, as I said, the tweet that you mentioned, Laura, I mean, then they go out and they immediately bomb an orphanage in Gaza, right? Because it's like, this is how, you know, I mean, I don't want to psychoanalyze why they did it, but nonetheless, like, this is the response of what you do in that day. You don't go and
It's
think about
collective
military.
punishment.
Yeah, exactly. Collective punishment, right. So anyways, obviously that last part, which we can get into in terms of when we get to some of the things that are gutting, because that part is gutting. But I do want to sort of say something, just sort of give moment to talk about, and today, with, as you said earlier, Stephen, them getting just rocked in southern Lebanon, you know, as they're trying to invade, that there is something that I just want to name that we feel, or I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I certainly feel when I see this force, you know, meeting the limits of its, you know, aggression and its ability to act with impunity and unchecked, you know, sort of violence against, you know, genocidal violence, I'll just say. Yeah. So either one of you can take that up.
Okay, do you want
I'll go first. You know, I think it's funny because number one, Lara will talk about affect, so I'm not going to say that. I think, I think I will talk about identification.
How did you know?
Oh, you know yourself.
He knows her very well.
Oh, honey. People are gonna hate us so much, or me. and they're right, and they're right too, but probably for the wrong reasons. I want to talk about identification, because what you're saying is basically that we're not allowed to identify with the oppressed. And, you know, we can think about figures like Nasrallah. And to some degree, the figure like Nasrallah is like, you know, a lot of figures who might be seen as anti-imperialist, but also might not be the best. They might be problematic, right? So I'm not gonna, Maduro or whomever else, these, and for the record, Putin, fuck him. China, fuck them. For everybody who wants.
Yes, fuck China. Fuck Zionist China. Here's what we have. Here's what Yemen and Palestine have to do to China. They have to hit him in the ring with 12 to 6 elbows. They have to hit him in the battlefield with Blickies and Yassins. Okay? Fuck Zionist China. China's Zionist shithole.
To go cape for them, they still have relations with diplomatic and economic relations with the apartheid state. We all talk about the imperialist center here and being able to cut off all they can do, or they can immediately just cut off the faucet for the apartheid state. China, Russia, nothing. Syria got bombed yesterday, where a couple people died in Syria, the capital. Guess what? There are Russian troops and there are Russian assets in Syria. There's an agreement between the Russians and the Israelis that as long as you don't, and mess with everybody, everything's gonna go stay cool between them. So for everybody who loves the Russians and say, go talk about Putin, Putin does shit for the Palestinian people and does shit for the Arab people. Okay, and same with China. No one is stepping up. And Turkey. So fuck them all. Okay.
Fuck Zionist China. Fuck Zionist China. And guess what? The largest source of imports to the Zionist entity is from the shithole known as fucking China. So fuck those ching chongs here. So China equals Kung Flu and Zionist normalization. So check it out. Zionist entity imports by country. So $13.15 billion worth of imports from Zionist China to the Zionist entity in 2022. And that's even more than America, okay? America, $9.66 billion worth of imports to the Zionist entity in 2022. The Krauts over there in Germany, okay? $7.088 billion dollars of it worth of imports in 2022. Switzerland, yeah, shitty little Switzerland, $6.096 billion dollars worth of imports in 2022. Turkey, which is also a Zionist shithole, $5.70 billion dollars worth of imports in 2022. Belgium, $4.54 billion worth of imports in 2022. The Netherlands, $4.28 billion worth of imports in 2022. France, the little soft, low testosterone beta males in France, $3.55 billion worth of imports in 2022. Italia, the land of Joe DiMaggio, $3.47 billion worth of imports in 2022. China Light, aka Hong Kong, $3.21 billion worth of imports in 2022. Shitty old England, $3.19 billion worth of imports in 2022. Another China Light, South Korea, which is a fucking Zionist shithole for the record, $2.80 billion worth of imports in 2022. India, $2.70 billion worth of imports in 2022. The lispy losers of Spain, $2.11 billion worth of imports in 2022. Those dirty little leprechauns in Ireland, $1.92 billion worth of imports in 2022. So the fact that the shithole known as China, the Zionist shithole known as China, Zionist China, is top of the list, that's a big problem. That's a big problem. And again, Zionist China must pay the fucking price. So shout out to Stephen Sheehan for calling out Zionist China, the land of the Kung Flu, which is called the Chinese virus, and calling out Zionist China for being a big shithole, a big Zionist shithole, and being the Zionist entity's leading source of imports in 2022. So there you go.